Hello, and welcome to Historical Humans Reads, where we take primary sources and bring them to your screen. I'm Colum Coleman, and today we are reading from the war story of one of Rome's most ambitious leaders. He is none other than Julius Caesar, the man who brought about the fall of the Roman Republic and the beginning of the rise of the Roman Empire. The work is, of course, the Conquest of Gaul. Originally published as a series of public reports on the war between Rome and the Gallic tribes of France and Belgium, the Conquest of Gaul was as much a contemporary history and geography of the Gallic lands as it was a propaganda tool designed to win Caesar the acclaim of the Roman public. Today, we'll be reading Book 1, Parts 2 through 5, from the Conquest of Gaul by Julius Caesar. With that, let's begin. Among the Helvetii, Orgetorix was by far the most distinguished and wealthy. He, when Marcus Messala and Marcus Piso were consuls, incited by lust of sovereignty, formed a conspiracy among the nobility and persuaded the people to go forth from their territories with all their possessions, saying that it would be very easy, since they excelled all in valor, to acquire the supremacy of the whole of Gaul. To this, he the more easily persuaded them, because the Helvetii are confined on every side by the nature of their situation. On one side, by the Rhine, a very broad and deep river, which separates the Helvetian territory from the Germans. On the second side, by the Jura, a very high mountain, which is situated between the Sequani and the Helvetii. On the third, by the Lake of Geneva, and by the river Rhone, which separates our province from the Helvetii. From these circumstances, it resulted that they could range less widely and could less easily make war upon their neighbors, for which reason men fond of war as they were affected with great regret. They thought that, considering the extent of their population and their renown for warfare and bravery, they had but narrow limits, although they extended in length 240 and in breadth 180 Roman miles. Induced by these considerations and influenced by the authority of Orgetorix, they determined to provide such things as were necessary for their expedition, to buy up as great a number as possible of beasts of burden and wagons, to make their sowings as large as possible, so that on their march plenty of corn might be in store, and to establish peace and friendship with the neighboring states. They reckoned that a term of 2 years would be sufficient for them to execute their designs. They fix by decree their departure for the 3rd year. Orgetorix is chosen to complete these arrangements. He took upon himself the office of ambassador to the states. On this journey, he persuades Casticus, son of Catamantalides, one of the Sequani, whose father had possessed sovereignty among the people for many years, and had been styled friend by the Senate of the Roman people, to seize upon the sovereignty in his own state, which his father had held before him. And he likewise persuades Dumnorix and Eduon, the brother of Divitacus, who at the time possessed the chief authority in the state and was exceedingly beloved by the people, to attempt the same, and gives him his daughter in marriage. He proves to them that to accomplish their attempts was a thing very easy to be done, because he himself would attain government in his own state. That there was no doubt that the Helvetii were the most powerful of the whole of Gaul. He assures them that he will, with his own forces and his own army, acquire the sovereignty for them. Incited by this speech, they give a pledge and an oath to one another, and hope that when they have seized the sovereignty, They will, by means of the three most powerful and valiant nations, be enabled to obtain possession of the whole of Gaul. When this scheme was disclosed to the Helvetii by informers, they, according to their custom, compelled Orgetorix to plead his cause in chains. It was the law that the penalty of being burned by fire should await him, if condemned. On the day appointed for the pleading of his case, Orgetorix drew together from all quarters to the court all his vassals to the number of 10,000 persons, and led together to the same place all his dependents and debtor bondsmen, of which he had a great number. By means of those, he rescued himself from the necessity of pleading his case, while the state, incensed at this act, was endeavoring to assert its right by arms, and the magistrates were mustering a large body of men from the country. Orgetorix died. And there is not wanting a suspicion, as the Helvetii think, of his having committed suicide. After his death, the Helvetii nevertheless attempt to do that which they had resolved on, namely to go forth from their territories. When they thought that they were at length prepared for this undertaking, they set fire to all their towns, in number about 12, to their villages, about 400, and to the private dwellings that remained. They burn up all the corn, except what they intend to carry with them. And after destroying the hope of a return home, they might be the more ready for the undergoing of all dangers. They order everyone to carry forth from home for himself provisions for 3 months, ready ground. They persuade the Rararci and the Tulingi and the Latobrigi, their neighbors, to adopt this same plan, and after burning down their towns and villages, to set out with them. And they admit to their party and unite themselves as the Confederates, the Boii, who had dwelt on the other side of the Rhine and had crossed over into the Norican territory and assaulted Norea. This has been an excerpt from the Conquest of Gaul on Historical Humans Reads. If you enjoyed this video and would like to hear more excerpts from original texts, please subscribe to be notified of the next one. If there is a work you would like to hear, be sure to like the video and leave a comment listing it below. Thank you for listening.